I've talked about the vocoder in the intro of this course, and just to get that into depth so you completely understand it, I'm going to use again the vocoder from Ableton. I'm going to apply that vocoder to this vocal patch right here. So let's hear that.
Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing.
So it's just a vocal loop in the BPM of the song. Now, what the vocoder is going to do is going to use two signals. One of the signals, called the carrier, is going to be a synthesizer that we're going to use, like this synthesizer right here. So we will use the synth as the carrier signal, and we will use the vocal as the modulator signal. And you can notice I'm placing the vocoder on the modulator. So I can use the carrier from inside this vocoder. It could be a noise, but I can use the external carrier. And when I choose the external, it gives me an option to choose a track from my song right here. So I'm going to use that to choose this serum number 9 right there. So what the vocoder does is it takes both of these signals, the carrier and the modulator, and split them into series of parallel filtered bands like this. So let's say 20 bands, or let's say 32 bands we can choose. And once they are both split into all of those bands, so both this sawtooth synthesizer and this vocal, it will measure the amplitude for each one of those bands of this modulator, and it will apply those same amplitudes in the same bands to these carrier signal. So what's it gonna sound like? Well, actually, it's gonna sound like we colored the voice with the synthesizer. So it was like the synthesizer was speaking this voice. Let's try that and see what it sounds like. I'm just gonna solo these two out. Now we do hear the synthesizer too. I should turn that off, and let's see what only this sounds like. Now if it's soloed, I would have to say sends only, like that. So you see, as long as we have the carrier, we also have the vocal. As soon as the carrier stops, we no longer hear anything. So we need both in order to have any sound. So what I could do, just for the example of this song, I'm going to double this right there. I'm going to prolong these notes. I'm going to select all of these like that, Control A. And now I'm going to do legato right there. So let's try that.
Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing.
So you see, we're applying the color of the synth to this vocal, and I explained how. So we're dividing both of these signals, the vocal and the synth, into a lot of bands, and we are measuring the amplitude that the vocal is producing in each one of those frequency bands. Now, once we have that information, we're applying those amplitudes to the same frequencies and the bands of the synthesizer, thus having the synth talk the actual sentence that we have in the vocal.
Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing. Pull up at the spot and you know I'm steady blazing.
Now let's get a drum loop in there. Let me search for a drum loop. Drums, drum loop. Let's see. Okay, let's say a drum loop just like this. Might be too fast even. So we are applying this synthesizer. Let me just check the outputs. Yep. And just to show you what this actual loop sounds like, I'm going to duplicate this track like this, Control D, and I'm going to remove the vocoder so you can hear it like this. And we colored it like this. Very nice. Now in this vocoder we also have other controls. We have the dry wet, so we can actually hear the drums. And we can go anywhere in between. Now we can shift the formants. So we are actually shifting the frequencies of this entire filter bank up and down, just shifting everything. So we don't actually have to apply each one of these bands to actually its corresponding band on the carrier. We can actually shift those left and right, like this. Sometimes you get really nice results. Now we can also draw in a different spectrum response right here, so we can lower, let's say, part of the spectrum downwards, attenuate it. You see no highs or no lows. And we can do that for each band. Now let's try that with 4 bands only. Now you see, when we have only 4 bands, we're not transferring this character of the loop so well. So the more bands we do, the more precise it gets. And that gives you a vocoder, a very interesting effect that you can apply to almost anything. So let's say you can harmonize any kind of element, like a drum, anything rhythmical, and apply that rhythmical analysis onto another sound like this synthesizer.